long time ago that there's nothing wrong with it, that it's maybe not a majority thing, that it's not something that's bad, it's just different. And now my understanding, and this is from Tryon, we can be born either a man or a woman. Okay, now Tryon says that we don't just stay one sex all the time. We come into the earth and we're going to be a new soul, and we're going to come in as a man or a woman, and we might come from another solar system. I would guess we would come from another solar system if we didn't come from here, because the soul doesn't just begin sometime. It has no beginning. So it was somewhere else before it came here. So when we come here, we're going to come, the first time we're going to come as a male or a female. There's no third sex that we can come as when we first come. And then you come as a man, let's say, for 12 lifetimes. And then the natural progression of things is that you will become a woman after so many lifetimes. I mean, it could be 12, it could be 13, it could be 20. But it's probably going to average around 12 lifetimes or something like that. But you're going to be one sex for a long period of time. And then there's going to be a transition. It may or may not happen all at once. So you've been a man for, let's say, 13 lifetimes. Well, your 14th life, you might start transitioning over to becoming a woman. And so you might have one lifetime where you're kind of halfway in between, and that's where you get these alternative genders. You're caught halfway in between, and you know, if someone is critical of someone being halfway in between, someday they may experience that. And it's like, if we don't have an understanding, you know, we might get mistreated when we're doing that transition. So you gotta leave them alone, you know, because you're probably going to go through that someday. You're going to transition, and you're going to go from one gender to the other. It doesn't happen very often, but a certain percentage of the population is going through that transition. It could be a few percentage of people. Could be 1/13. Could be 5% of the people at any given time could be going through that transition. That's a lot of people that they're going from one gender to the other. You might have to spend one lifetime going through that transition. Some people might just transition right over. So they might just go from one to the other. Could be 1% even. But there's going to be people that are caught halfway in between, and that's where you get these other alternatives. They're not sure of what they are because they're in a transition. And then in their next life, they'll probably be finished. They'll be able to complete that transition, and they'll be able to figure out who they are. And then they'll spend a dozen lifetimes in that, you know, gender. And it's a cycle that goes every dozen lifetimes. And I don't know how many exactly. It could be around a dozen. It could be more or less. And then when you get to be an old soul, you may be able to choose your gender at some point. After you've advanced, been on this planet for long enough, you could choose. You could say, I'm going to be a woman next time. But right now, I think it's kind of chosen. Could be chosen for us. I don't know. There could be some mechanism, some cycle that happens where you, because it's not something that most people think about, and it's just going to happen. If it's something you really think about, I suppose you could affect. If you really liked being a man, let's say, you could be a man next time. You probably will be. But there might be a natural mechanism where, okay, now it's time to become a woman. And so you got people that are gay, let's say. They call it gay. Well, There's nothing wrong with them. They're possibly going through this transition. Leave them alone. Don't criticize them. Definitely don't criticize the gayness, because it's natural, it's normal, and it's actually a physical thing that doctors that scientists can say, yeah, this person's going to be gay. His body is gay. He's born that way. He's born half and half. It's not everybody's. There's two genders, but there's any kind of combination of those two. You can have a male body, but you can have thoughts that are female. Or you could have a male body, but you could have some features that are feminine. And I've met people. I'm not going to mention who they are, but I've met people that have feminine characteristics in their shoes, even like their feet. They have women's feet. They have characteristics about their body, even though they're a man and they have a penis and everything. They have feminine characteristics to their physical body. They're probably going through that transition. They either were a woman and they're transferring to a man, or they were a man and they're starting to transfer to be a woman. And this is their transition period. And, love them as they are. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to be their friend. Leave them alone. Don't bother them about it. If they have gay tendencies and you don't like it, don't bother them about it. Don't pick on them. And don't think ill of it, because it's natural. They can't help it. And it's not bad. And it's not sinful. And this is what the Hindu and the natives teach. They teach a holistic concept like this, where it's okay to be different. Whereas in the earlier years, like in the 1700s, 1800s, early 1900s, you're gay, you're like a devil child. You're evil. And that's dark. And that just gives all the more reason to do violence against those people, or to persecute them, and to do bodily harm, to harm their mentality, put them down. And that's what the church has been doing for the last 1700 years, is putting people down. And it was run by people that were of this kind of thinking. It was run by the elites. The present Pope is a loving man. He's the reincarnation, and I know this is going to be a stretch for some people. He's the reincarnation of St. Francis of Assisi. He's a reincarnation of St. Francis of Assisi. I don't know if this will ever be proven. I don't know how you could ever prove something like this, but this is what Cryon said, and I kind of believe it. I mean, a lot of the other things he says seems to be true, and it makes sense. What he's trying to do, he's trying to save the church from itself. He's not an elite. I don't know if he's the first non-elite pope we've had, but he's not an elite. I don't know who the first non-elite pope was, but the church is no longer controlled by an elite pope, by someone that's a blood elite. Because at one time it was all by blood. They were all elites. They were related to the kings and queens of Europe, the people who were in the papacy. And there's probably still some of these in the clergy and in the leadership of the church. I'm going to get over here. And they're fighting him. They'd like to kill him because he knows what the church needs, and he's trying to make these changes. And the next pope will be a good pope too. Apparently there's enough good people in the church, in the cardinalship or whatever, the people that choose the next leaders, enough good ones in there that they can get what's good. for the